Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Blow to 38. This is episode 40. Great news. K-League 2 and K-League 1 return after the World Cup break, and we are super excited here on Blow to 38. I'm Andrew, and you can feel the buzz in the air here as I'm joined by Luke wearing an Incheon jersey and Mike wearing a Suwon Samsung Blue Wings jersey. Hi, guys. How you doing?
I'm waiting for Mike to stand up and show everybody. No, I'm good. It's been a long 6 weeks of not much happening. Mike, how are you doing?
It's been a busy few weeks of WK and K3 action for me. It's been very busy.
Good.
I was going to ask, actually, because you have been at a lot of games. What was the most recent game you've been to? For me, I think it was that game in Mukdong. When was your most recent game, Luke?
No, a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, at Blue Wings versus Hwasong. Really good game. 15,000 there. And Hwasong nearly did it. They nearly did it. Last minute Suwon goal. Half of the course, I guess. But no, it was a really good experience, really good day out. Really nice to see that stadium with more than 2,000 people in it as well. So, yeah.
A lot of negativity around Korean football these days on the back of the national team's group stage exit at the 2026 World Cup. Just a reminder, football is back this weekend. K-League 1 is back, K-League 2 is back. It's the first round of the Korea Cup. WK League continues, K3 down to K7. They all continue. Look, if you want to see an improvement in the standard of Korean football, just buy a ticket, go down to your local stadium and watch a game. No team is turning fans away in Korea. Every team in Korea at all levels needs more people to show up. So show up and watch some football in Korea if you have the opportunity this weekend. Check out our website, blow38korea.com. You'll find interview with Fiona Wirtz and Morgan Ferrier, plus previews to K-League 1 this coming weekend, K-League 2, Korea Cup, and many more aside. So that's blow38korea.com. I will leave a link to that in the description for this video. Let's go straight on to the K-League 1 preview. This is where Luke really brings his A game. And we should have a quick chat about the table first, though, because it is so long since K-League 1, we were at a K-League 1 match, and quite a bit has changed since then. Like, some teams have lost significant players, obviously, and teams challenging for the title have picked up players that could very well make a difference towards the end of the season. FC Seoul, if you've forgotten, they are top. They are 6 points clear. It looked like they were beginning to have a bit of a wobble with a bunch of home games before they went on the road to close out their first half of the season. But they finished the first half pretty well, so they have a 6 point lead over Ulsan and Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Gangwon FC continue to be the surprise story this season. They're down in fourth. At the other end of the table, Gwangju are pretty much cut apart, but they have been granted permission finally to sign some players, so the squad should be looking a little bit better for the second half of the season. The team directly above them, Gimcheon Sangmu, as we've been saying all season, are relegated no matter what happens between now and the end of November. So, Luke, preview.
Yeah, so we're into the time of season when all of the games are at horrific kickoff times if you live on the peninsula. It's 7 or 7:30 from here on out until probably the middle of September. This weekend's games are all at 7:30, and Saturday's fixtures start with Daejeon Hana Citizen versus Bucheon FC. Daejeon have had a bit of a rough start. They're not where they want to be in the league. They're sitting in 10th position, and they've gone on a run of losing quite a few games. They face Bucheon this weekend, who are without Galego, who's been a very important player for them. The game earlier in the season finished 1-1, and you've got to think that this is the kind of game that Daejeon will be hoping to win if they want to get back into, at least into the top half come the end of the season, if not challenging for Asian Champions League places. Up next we have Anyang versus Pohang Steelers. Now Anyang won away at the Steelyard earlier in the year, but they've only won one game at home all season. It's going to be a struggle for them to pick up more points. They've lost Thomas, who was a very important player for them. He's moved to Ulsan and they haven't signed a replacement yet. They're conceding goals. They've drawn 8 games this season, And it's a question of, will they be able to build on what they had last season, or are they going to struggle with a bit of second season syndrome? An interesting game to finish off Saturday is John Buck versus Gangwon. John Buck sitting third, level on points with Ulsan, and Gangwon are directly below them in fourth on 24 points. So if John Buck win, they could move second. If Gangwon win, they could move second. It's a very interesting tie, and Gangwon have done very well this season. So you wouldn't put it past Gangwon to get something out of that game. Earlier in the season, the teams met and it finished 1-1. So realistically, could be a balanced game. Either team could win it. Now, Sunday's games kick off again 7:30, and we start with bottom club Gwangju, who are at home to second in the league, Ulsan. Gwangju are 7 points adrift. They are able to sign players now, but they need something special to get out of this. Remember, the bottom team will only be in a relegation playoff if it's Gwangju, rather than being directly relegated because it's Gimcheon that are going down. The game earlier in the season was 5-1 to Ulsan, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Ulsan have conceded a lot of goals. Gwangju have conceded 37 so far this season, and Ulsan have conceded 20, which is the third worst defence in the league. So with the signings that Gwangju have made, maybe they'll be able to get on the score sheet and cause Ulsan some problems. Coming into Sunday, again we have Seoul versus Incheon, a big game that is a repeat of the opening day fixture when Seoul picked up 3 points. History is on Seoul's side for this one. They've won the last 3 games between the two teams. Incheon haven't won in Seoul for almost exactly 3 years. But there's going to be between 3,000 and 4,000 away fans making the trip to Seoul because of the new rules for away fans that have come in during the summer. So hopefully the atmosphere will be good, and you never know, Incheon might pick up some points. The final game is Gimcheon versus Jeju SK, which is being played in Gimcheon. Earlier in the season, this also finished 1-1. Gimcheon haven't won in 4. They're not doing very well. They're kind of keeping their head above the water as far as not finishing bottom in the league. Jeju have lost the last 2. They've been struggling for goals as well. They're averaging less than a goal a game, and so you've got to wonder, will this be another 0-0? Will this be a draw, or will Jeju be able to pick something up? Jeju do have history of picking up unexpected points. They had good wins away from home earlier in the season, particularly against Daejeon Hana Citizen. So you never know. After a long break, I think form somewhat goes out of the window. It'll be interesting to see how people start, having had 6 weeks off. But yeah, lots to talk about, lots to look forward to.
We will have a full roundup as ever early next week with the weekend that was. And of course, Luke and I will be back at some point later on next week for a preview then of the upcoming weekend. Check out the website though, below38korea.com. You will see an article written by Luke previewing the upcoming K-League 1 weekend as well. So you can listen to this podcast for some information it's just given you there, and you can also check out a written form of Luke's thoughts as well. Thank you very, very much for that, Luke. Mike's been waiting impatiently at the other ends of the line. K-League 2, the only thing he cares about. The standings though, before you come in, Mike, or just a reminder that the Blue Wings, by virtue of that fortuitous late win in Hwasong, the gap between first and second is a mere 3 points. So Leland could have been up to second spot at this point. However, they incredibly lost to Cheongbuk Cheongju FC before the World Cup break. That was Cheongju's first win of the season. And there's just too many teams as ever to cover in K-League 2. But Seoul-Land and Hwasong are the only teams that have played 15 matches so far. So they will sit out. One of those clubs will sit out each of the next weekends. So a chance for the teams at the top to pull away from Seoul-Land, and a chance for the teams below Hwasong to catch up with them. Mike, what's going on in K-League 2 this weekend?
Yes, it is back, where the real fans and the real football takes place in Korea, of course. Unless you're talking about K3, where a slight intersection, I did see on Saturday a Jeonbuk player booked for simulation. a very rare privilege, I must say. But anyway, yes, it's back, and I think the big talking point that we're going to see in the K2, especially with the running in, is this. I'm going to call it the hydration break effect, because we've seen quite a lot of games at the World Cup shift significantly after the additional, totally not commercial hydration breaks. And I think the biggest test of this idea is going to come when Busan play, because they actually have, I think, a quite favourable trip to face Jeonnam, who have been rather dreadful this season when they're taking that lovely trip along the southern coast. I think, I said the real test is, are they going to go to get back to normal, win 2-3-0, or are they actually going to slip up? If they slip up here at Jeonnam, I think very much so the season is going to go into a decline. If they don't, then at least they're going to kick on for a little bit longer. Similarly, Eland are in this situation as well, I think. And it might work in their favour because they were absolutely outplayed by Cheongju, especially in that second half. Cheongju picking up their first win and ruining the potential to go a full season without a single win. So I'm pretty angry about having to witness that. But yeah, these are really telling. If Eland can actually make use of that break and actually kick on and be the club that many pundits thought they would be this season, then it's going to be all the power to them. But the real test is, do Busan actually still have it in the tank, or has this taken the wind out of the sails? Because elsewhere up there, of course, I haven't mentioned Blue Wings because I figured we always have to put them in the extra time section, but they're hosting Songnam, and to be honest, if Blue Wings aren't sitting level on points by the end of Saturday, given Busan play on Sunday, then there's a big problem for the Blue Wings as well. But I think this might be when the Blue Wings finally begin crawling to the top of the K-League 2. And also, let's take a look, because the chasing pack, I'm going to put it 4th through 8th, Daegu through Asan, because they're only separated by 5 points. I know you could add Cheonan into that, but as much as they've been quite fantastic by the expectations this season, I don't see Cheonan lasting the distance. Of course, prove me wrong, and if you do, buy me a beer. But I think Daegu, Suwon FC, they've got fairly straightforward trips on paper. Daegu are going to Cheongju. They should be winning that. I know we've got especially one person on this pod got very excited trying to get himself onto Cheongju Fan TV.
And it worked.
It worked as well. But again, the hydration break might have taken the wind out of Cheongju sails, but I mean, Daegu started to show the quality that they should have been showing earlier in the season. They started well and then they dropped off, but they've been coming back. So I'd imagine that. And Edgar has been apparently picked as the one to watch this season. If you want to know more, get on to B38 website to read more about the season preview there as well. Now, Suwon FC visit Ansan, and obviously I'll wax lyrical because this is the 53rd meeting between a Suwon FC and an Ansan-based club. Basically, if you follow K-football for as long as I have, then you'll probably know that Ansan's biggest rivalry is probably Suwon FC and not the Line 4 derby opponents Anyang for Hwa Stadium youngsters, if they don't know their history. But it is the first meeting in 6 whole years when Suwon FC pumped Ansan 4-0 at the Hwa back in I think 2020. I must say Ansan have beaten Suwon FC 4-0 before in recent history as well, so I have to get that bit in. But to be honest, Suwon FC should be expecting to go to the Hwa Stadium and get a win, of course. However, you've been talking about the away sections being more open than before under the new rulings. Actually, the Hwa Stadium has always had, well, for the last few seasons, the entire South Stand has been open to the away section, but only Suwon Blue Wings have managed to fill it. Plenty of seats available in the South section for this fixture. Not so many seats available in the home sections, as Ansan are. Obviously, not all seats are open, the upper tiers are closed. However, there's mostly sold out for this fixture, so hopefully there might be a little bit of home advantage. Maybe. But the real tasty one, of course, is Gimpo hosting Asan. And this is a massive test for the Owls. And there's Luke's perking up. He loves any club associated with Owls, of course. But I have a feeling that Asan, I think they're going to maybe get cut too far adrift and fall out of that playoff race with this one, because Gimpo should really be coming out on top. It's a massive test for Asan. And if they can actually even pull a point here, they're going to stay in that race. Certainly the game I would look out for this weekend. And also, again, take a look out for Andrew's opinion on that on the B38 website. Hwasong, as mentioned before, they're sitting this one out as Chowder reconsiders a national team job. Maybe sorry, too soon. But also Gyeongnam do play Cheonnam and Paju play Yongin.
There wasn't enough time to fit in all 8 fixtures at K-League 2, as you can imagine. Cheongnam Masan, 20 points so far this season, having a really good season. They need to win that game in Gimpo, as you were saying. This is only Gimpo's second home game of the season, by the way. They've played 14 matches, 13 of those have been away, as we discussed before. And as soon as they returned home, they found themselves in a little bit of trouble against Jeonnam Dragons. K-League 2 is a slog. It's an absolute and utter slog of a season. We will have a full roundup on the weekend that was early next week. There is an article on the website which is previewing the upcoming games plus predictions, which are pretty much all likely to be incorrect. They even went for Ansan to draw with Suwon FC, which is probably unlikely to happen as well. So, looking forward to it. Before we talk about other issues in Korean football, in less than a minute, where are you going this weekend? Because remember, as we said at the outset, please buy a ticket. Nowhere sold out this weekend. Korean football needs as many people as possible to show up. Luke, first, where are you heading to?
Okay, I'm going to Incheon versus Seoul in Seoul World Cup Stadium. The entire lower bowl has been open for the away fans, which is the first time I've seen that, so they are taking heed of the new rules. Tickets are selling well. They're 21,000 per person, which is outrageous compared to everywhere else I've been. I think I only paid 10,000 won at Hwasong the other week. But yeah, so I'm going to be there along with about 3,000 of my closest mates.
Mike?
Obviously, I'll be at the WA for Suwon's his historic 53rd visit. But by all means, if you do visit the WA, there's probably a reason why it's a near sellout, and there is a concert 30 minutes after the end of that match. The Atlanta Ansan supporters crew is a member over for his biannual game there, so that'll be exciting to welcome him as well. But there is also a little bit of Korea Cup on Sunday, or across the weekend, I believe. So hopefully be taking a wee visit to Namyangju to check out what happens there.
Korea Cup is Ryan going this weekend. Saturday, 7:30. Yangchon TNT of K5 against Pyeongchang United of K4. Why? Because the game is taking place at Hyochang. And if you're familiar with Korean football, you'll know that Hyochang is one of the most famous stadiums in the country. It was built for the Asia Cup back in the 60s, a tournament that also featured Israel and North Vietnam. Korea went on to win that particular tournament. It's beautiful. It's in a great part of Seoul. Wonderful floodlights. It does have a running track, but most of the seats are not open. Hyochang tends to host a lot of early rounds of the Korean Cup when K5, 6, 7, whatever it is, teams in the greater Seoul area, they simply can't use the middle school pitch that they normally play on, so they go to Hyochang. I've never been there though when the weather is nice. It's always cold. It's always early-ish February, I think, when I go there. So looking forward to that, and also trying to keep up my run of going to see a match in every round of the season's Korea Cup. The free round has already taken place, or the pre-round, I beg your pardon. 8 teams from K5, 4 of them have now qualified for round 1. There are 15 matches this weekend. The match that Mike was talking about is Namyangju against Seoul Jung'an. Yeah, it's a bit of a derby. I mean, those two teams are not that far away from each other. They're also separated by a single point in the K4 table. That should be a good one. But the pick of the fixtures is match 13. Daejeon Korail against Pocheon. Daejeon are third in K3. Pocheon are second. In terms of quality in the first round of the Korea Cup, it doesn't get any higher than that. Sihung are on the road this weekend. They are the leaders in K3. But the team that's third is hosting the team that is second. So that should be a good game. And the winners of that match will visit Songnam FC, who of course are one of the most successful teams in the history of Korean football. Mike and I will be keeping an eye on the first round. Luke won't be. That's simply because our teams will be weighting the winners of some of these who are Ansan meeting.
Yeah, Ansan will be, I think, the second K4 opponent I'll see Ansan crash out of the Cup to as they take on Jinju, having also seen them lose to Pyeongchang in the Cup before. However, the team does get to go through to Suwon Blue Wings because there is a conspiracy to force Ansan to play the Blue Wings in every single possible iteration of the early rounds of the Cup.
I wouldn't be counting your chickens. I said Jinju are the most dominant team probably in the 4 top divisions of Korean football. I know there's levels to all this, but by the sounds of it, and certainly by looking at the record, they've only dropped 5 points all season, and we're into July. The Blue Wings will be on the road. They will face the winners of Busan Transportation of K3 and Gijan County of K4. It'd be amazing if it was Gijan County. I know these matches will start reverting to Wednesday nights, which is such a shame. We're trying to get, we want more people to show up and watch football in Korea, but sometimes they just don't make it easy for people either. Gijan County, if they won that game, really should be hosting that on a weekend against a team like the Blue Wings. But whatever, that's the Korea Cup first round. That takes place this weekend. I'll be at one of those matches. We'll have a full roundup of a full preview of the second round, which is going to take place on Wednesday, July the 15th. We'll have the draw for the second round and a preview for the second round on below the38korea.com. Please check that out. I love the Korea Cup. I love going along to these matches. So we will do our best to cover every round, including the pre-round, which took place at the end of June. We're running out of time here, so we have a little bit of time to chat about the World Cup. I wanted to ask you guys if you had one takeaway to take from that. I've pretty much talked about mine a number of times in it, so I might as well just lead and then you guys can take over. For me, just a lot of the conversation after Korea's early exit was reforming the KFA, reforming the K-League. Some strange suggestions or some strange, I'd say, theories out there that the KFA needs to sort the K-League out, even though it's an entirely independent organization. It's separate from the KFA. The KFA does not run the K-League. But for me, if you're looking for improvement in Korean football, it starts at home like it does in every other country around the world, and we need more people to show up. And we can go through an entire season of average attendances, especially those midweek games when there's 6 games on in K-League 1, 3 on a Tuesday, 3 on a Thursday, and they're barely getting 30,000 people through the gates at all 6 matches combined. So if you are living in Korea and you do care about Korean football, please show up and watch more matches. There's Korea Cup, there's K-League 1, there's K-League 2, and there's football at every level on in Korea this weekend. So my main takeaway is there's no point complaining about the World Cup and how bad football is in Korea if you're not willing to show up and put money in your pocket. That's how I feel about it. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, actually, just to reiterate your point, I put together an article that will be being published in the next few days, hopefully, just making the exact same point. You can map the success of World Cup or international teams who go deep into competitions, and it pretty much correlates with the stadium capacity, or rather how many fans are in stadiums. Outliers are like Argentina, but they have 120,000 seater stadiums, and they still fill half of them. So it's a massive key point. I've had a few people ask me, about talking about football for the first time in like 3 or 4 years, and I'm like, well, and I've seen some outrageous takes on social media, and my question is always, well, what was the last match you went to? How have you actually supported Korean football? Because this isn't something to complain about. It's something that people can be extremely proactive about and actually get involved and show kids that these are the, look who's there. Get them interested. Get them just kicking ball around on the street, just the way so many countries have those organic sparks that bring footballers in. Following Kangin, following Son, they're not roadmaps any more than how a CEO became at the top of a business is a roadmap you can follow. What the country needs is just a wider pool of average quality. Otherwise, it'll be as useful as a KFA hand warmer in summer.
Yeah, I think
Any
something
thoughts,
we
Luke?
have mentioned is how willing a lot of people are to spend a lot of money to go and see the Atletico Madrid tour of Korea or the Newcastle United tour of Korea, or how willing they are to wake up and watch a 3 a.m. game of their favourite European team that they don't actually have a connection to. And meanwhile, their local side is struggling for numbers. One way to actually improve Korean football is to go to games. The more games you go to, the more people go to games and put money into the system, the better the development's going to be. You will have better coaches coming in, you have better coaching for younger players, you have sort of more expectation and more desire to do well. And it's just a case of getting bodies through metaphorical turnstiles and getting people into games, because when all you're doing is sitting on Instagram or Twitter and complaining about it, but when anybody mentions K-League, you turn around and, oh, well, K-League's rubbish, I don't watch it. It's like, well, yeah, you're contributing to the problem. You're only interested in Korean players when they go abroad, and you're only talking about Korean players when you want them to go abroad. Support local football in your local community and see how that will build it up. Simple, no?
I agree. It is, yeah. I also think as well, it's tied to all this, but we see too often there's pressure placed upon K-League clubs to accept meager transfer fees for star players in this league, and this is obviously not to the development of Korean football. Like John Janu, top goal scorer John Book, I think West Brom offered about €1 million for him at one point when he'd already done his military service. He's a Korean international. He's playing for Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. But there's a lot of pressure on Jeonbuk. I know they don't listen to this stuff. There's a lot of pressure on them to sell at that meager price. But again, this is where the future of Korean football players is coming from. They're coming from Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. They're coming from FC Seoul, Suwon Blues, you name it. But they're not going to bother if they're under pressure to sell their prized assets for virtually nothing. So, as the lads have been saying, there's loads and loads of football this weekend. There's tickets available everywhere. The stadiums are magnificent. You can have a beer in the stands. There's great music. There's great noise. There's great colour. It's not violent. It's cheap, except for the away fan section at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. If you're in Korea and you genuinely care about Korean football and you want to see an improvement, then please show up and watch a game. And we'd love to meet you there if you are there. And let's talk more about Korean football in the future. Thanks for your contributions today. Are you glad you're back?
Yeah, I mean, weekends are for football. What else are you supposed to do? Laundry and tidying? It's football time.
Thanks again for that, Mike and Luke. Good to chat with you guys again. Looking forward to the football this weekend. We'll be back next week for the weekend that was. Like, share, subscribe. Tell everybody that we're going to some matches, and also check out our stadium guides. If you want to go watch a game in Korea this weekend, there's a really good chance we have a stadium guide for you on our website, B38korea.com. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Take care.
Bye.